Montezuma, ruler of the Aztecs. Whether leaders fall in battle or die of old age in their rich kingdoms, one important measure of their success is their legacy. A legacy is what a person leaves behind and how he or she is remembered. A legacy may be described as glorious or negative. We do not know how Montezuma, an Aztec leader in the early 1500s, died. He was either killed when his own subjects threw stones at him during a speech, or he was murdered by Spanish conquistadors. So, either way, he was killed. Even though there are few details about his death, we do know that he left a legacy. In fact, Montezuma left behind two legacies: an expansion of the Aztec Empire and a failure to defeat Spanish conquistadors. To some historians, Montezuma's defeat by the conquistadors is his most lasting legacy, outshining his positive accomplishments. Montezuma II Quetzalcoatl, also known as Montezuma, was the Aztec Tlatoani. From 1502 to 1520, this means he was the speaker for the entire empire, and this title gave him the authority of a king. Because he had so much power, Montezuma was viewed as nearly godlike by the Aztecs. He was born and lived in Tenochtitlan, the capital of the Aztec Empire, where Mexico City is today. Montezuma reigned after his uncle. After being schooled in religion, science, and art, he took the throne when a council of elders elected him to be a leader. Montezuma was a deeply religious leader. He was a strong believer in the god war and the sun. The Aztecs gave the god daily offering of blood, believing it would make the sun rise each day. However, Aztec religion also called for human sacrifice. The Aztecs believed that only human blood would satisfy the gods, as it was the ultimate sacrifice and repayment for God's protection. Usually the humans who were sacrificed were prisoners of war. In Montezuma's desire to expand his kingdom, he continually conquered other tribes. He captured many men and women and killed them as sacrifices at the altar of the god of war and sun. Unlike the rulers before him, Montezuma made changes to his palace in Tenochtitlan. Under his rule, the palace included a new zoo and impressive gardens. The zoo contained wild cats, large snakes, and all the birds found in his kingdom. It even housed humans considered strange to the Aztecs, such as people with albinism, that's people without natural pigments who have white hair and pink eyes, and dwarfism as little people. Montezuma's royal menagerie, or collection of animals, boosted his image as a god. To his people, it showed he had control of all creatures. The Spanish sailors who arrived later believed that the animals were fed the flesh of human sacrifices, but the animals were most likely fed wild birds like chickens and turkeys. However, you can imagine the Spanish sailors' unease at visiting the zoo after seeing the nearby altars for human sacrifice. In addition to these decorative changes, Montezuma changed the social structure of his kingdom by forbidding commoners to enter the palace. This widened the gap between the tribes and the ruler. Montezuma also showed his authority by making the Aztec Empire even larger than it was when he came to power. He pushed his army south, capturing the Zapotec and Yopi people. All conquered territories had to send tributes, a payment much like a tax, to Montezuma. These tributes included textiles, cacao, salt, and humans for ritual sacrifice. Tributes were a main source of income for the city. However, they also drained the conquered territory's resources. The sharp division between tribes and king increased when Montezuma raised taxes and tribute amounts. His people did not welcome these changes. There were revolts from tribes near Tenochtitlan, but Montezuma's army always won. His tight control of the empire made people unhappy. When tribes learned of ships arriving from the east, they believed the gods were coming to help free them from Montezuma's control. And in a way they did. The ships contained Hernan Cortes, a Spanish conquistador, and his men. In 1519, the Spanish conquistadors landed on the shores of Montezuma's empire. Montezuma believed that Cortes was actually the Aztec god Quetzalcoatl. returning to claim his throne in a different form. Because he felt Cortes was a god, Montezuma sent Cortes and his men gifts. Outwardly, Montezuma may have been respectful, but he was also worried about Cortes. He did not want Cortes and his men to come to his palace, so Montezuma had his priests create charms to send them away. In Montezuma's mind, Cortes may have been a god, but the throne still belonged to Montezuma. Cortes made his way to Tenochtitlan. During his journey, he made alliances with tribes who wanted to rebel against Montezuma's policies. Cortes arrived at the city in November 1519 with 300 Spanish soldiers. They were welcomed by Montezuma and brought into the palace. Montezuma treated Cortes like a friend and gave the Spanish rooms and more gifts. However, Cortes saw the temples of human sacrifice and thought the Aztecs would try to kill him and his men. Cortes distrusted Montezuma and sensed Montezuma would try to hurt or kill him. To stay in control, Cortes took Montezuma hostage. Took Montezuma hostage in Montezuma's own home and demanded a ransom of gold. Montezuma remained a prisoner, held captive by Cortes. In just over a week, Cortes had quietly taken over the palace, but not the Aztec kingdom yet. In another show of power, Cortes's troops destroyed one of the Aztec temples, angering Montezuma and his people. The Aztec people began to see Montezuma as a weak leader because he did not kill the Spanish. Meanwhile, Cortes ordered Montezuma to address his people and tell them not to attack the Spanish. While Montezuma spoke, the Aztec people threw stones at him. According to some sources, Montezuma died shortly afterward from one of the blows from the stones. However, the Aztecs claimed that the Spanish killed him after he failed to stop his people from attacking Spanish camps. The Spanish tried to hide Montezuma's death from the Aztec people so they could escape the city. Still, the Aztecs learned of Montezuma's death and attacked the Spanish. As they tried to escape, much of the ransom that the Spanish had demanded for Montezuma's release sank to the bottom of the lake surrounding the city of Tenochtitlan. Cortes escaped, and he later returned to conquer the Aztecs. This time, the Aztecs were weaker due to smallpox, and the Spanish were stronger, in part because they had many guns. The Aztecs fell to the Spanish in 1521. Now that you know more about Montezuma, what legacy do you think he left behind? Was he a notable ruler, or was he just a man who let his empire fall?